Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is in Kenya Monday on a two-stop visit to Africa. Secretary Kerry met with Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta to discuss counterterrorism and ways to repel the threat of al-Shabab, the terrorist group that killed 148 people at Garissa University on April the 2nd. Following the attack, Kenya asked for more help with intelligence and security measures from the U.S. and its European allies to prevent further attacks by the extremist group. The U.S., along with other Western nations, already provide training and other support for the security forces. Kerry, who arrived on Sunday, also commemorated the 1998 bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi, in which more than 200 people died, before meeting Kenyatta. Speaking to VOA in Nairobi, citizens welcomed the visit by Mr. Kerry.
The US can do a lot in the issue of security because technologically they are very much improved, well advanced. And I think they can share their information with us, their training.
I think the visit is a win-win situation for both countries. As you know, America, the relationship between Kenya and America prior to election was not that good. And I think the American government want to mend that relationship.
I think the changing relationship is certainly in part due to the fact that the charges against President Kenyatta have been dropped. That was part of the reason for the frosty relationship over a certain period. Kenya hasn't only had very warm relations with the US on a diplomatic front, but also has, in terms of the Kenyan people and the people of the United States, both of whom look at each other very, very favorably. I went to university in the US, so I know this from my own experience.
Well, Kenyatta's spokesman said on Twitter that investment, trade, as well as a planned visit by President Barack Obama to Kenya later this year were also discussed. Secretary Kerry is also slated to stop in Djibouti. Now, Secretary Kerry spoke at a press conference after meeting with the Kenyan officials.
Kenya also needs international assistance and international solidarity on another matter. That is the challenge of hosting hundreds of thousands of refugees who have fled to this country for protection from persecution, fear, and war. I know that represents a burden to the people here. I know people here are feeling that burden, particularly after an event like Garissa. It's unavoidable. It's completely understandable. But on the other hand, Kenya can be extraordinarily proud of the fact that it stands out as a country that has welcomed people from their terror in other countries, and that Kenya stands as a partner in the effort to bring to justice those who perpetrate that kind of terror.
Well, VOA State Department correspondent Pam Dockins is traveling with Secretary Kerry and now joins us live via Skype from Nairobi. Pam, quite a number of security issues to discuss in Nairobi, right?
Absolutely, Vincent. Vincent, as a matter of fact, Secretary Kerry started his news conference by offering condolences to the victims and family members of the attack at Garissa University. He said that tragedies like this cause momentary turmoil and chaos and grief, but instead of dividing people, they actually bring people closer together. He talked about border security and law enforcement and said that these were important, but he said the bigger imperative is to persuade people to refrain from joining groups like al-Shabab. He also said there's a need to build trust between authorities and members of the local community.
Now, we know that the massive refugee camp, Dadaab, has been in the news and in discussions. What is the Secretary saying that needs to be done about that refugee camp?
Indeed, it has been in the news. Some Kenyan authorities have expressed an interest in having the camp closed because of concerns that it is a security risk. Secretary Kerry announced new aid that will help Dadaab and the other refugee camps in Kenya. He said the U.S. will provide an additional $45 million in assistance to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees for Kenya, and that's going to raise the total assistance to about $289 million for the last 2 fiscal years. And of course, some of that money will be used to support the large numbers of Somalis who are refugees in Kenya.
Now, Pam, in the neighborhood of Kenya, we have South Sudan that has been in turmoil. What did Secretary Kerry say about that?
Secretary Kerry said that South Sudan was a country that has shown great promise, but he said that promise was at grave risk of being squandered because of civil unrest. He announced an additional $5 billion in support for South Sudan and international efforts to create a credible and impartial justice mechanism. Now,
you have a few more hours or several hours in Nairobi. What's going to happen next that we can expect to hear from you?
Well, in addition, Kerry will be meeting tomorrow with civil society leaders. In addition to meeting with President Kenyatta today, he also met with opposition leaders. He said his goal during his visit to Kenya was to get perspective from a wide variety of people.
Well, thank you very much for joining us from Nairobi, Pam. That is Pam Dockins, a VOA State Department correspondent reporting live via Skype from Nairobi, Kenya.